All right, team, jump your way in. All right, see we're all arriving. Still waiting on a couple more. Here we go. I'm coming in now. Excellent. Right, wait for a few more of you to arrive. Need to double check the assessment. I've sent that off. Dustin, Fatin, are you here today, Fatin?
Here.
Good. Imran, you here today?
Yes.
Good man. Nazrin, are you here?
Here.
You are here?
Yeah.
Okay. So Rachel, Simon, did I see Simon?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Okay, team. Now, here we are. We're looking at the market model. We're looking at this is the thing for economics. This is the one that we're going to use again and again and again and again. Kind of like the PPC curve, but on a micro scale, but still really important. And the first part of it, the first half of it, if you will, is called demand. Now, I know you're familiar with this word because maybe you get told it from time to time. I demand this happens. I don't know. You might find some things to be demanding. Right. So let's just have a gentle stroll into what we're talking about with regards to demand. I don't know if you've ever been on Amazon. I know obviously Shopee and Lazada and those other sorts of places are available, but check this out. I went on Amazon. I know this is a couple of years ago now, right? But I found some quite interesting things that you could buy, right? So just looking at these are duck feet for your hands. So you put them on your fingers and then you walk around with them. You can actually buy all of these products on Amazon, or you used to be able to. I'm assuming you still can. Okay, this one here is a voice recorder. So you push the button at the top here and it records your voice. It's shaped like a pickle. I don't know why. Okay. You have gummy bears, and you have gummy bears, in this case, in the shape of Donald Trump for some particular reason. Again, don't know why. This one here, part of me would be quite tempted with that one. I guess, that'd be quite a good present for people, I would think. Toilet paper with Donald Trump's face on it. I think that would be kind of funny. That may be why there's demand for that particular product. This one here is instant underpants. So you have the little tin, and I don't know what situation would call for this, but you add water and into the material in there, and it turns into underpants. Again, there's demand for that. Right. This one here, you put in your shower. It's a soap dispenser, shaped like somebody's nose, and then you push the nostril, and the soap comes out. You'd have to be a certain type of person, I would imagine, to want that particular thing. But maybe the same sort of person who wants to have a hat that looks, well, right? I don't know. Okay. Who would necessarily want that? Maybe the same people who vote for this gentleman. I don't know. Now, this is a tin of what's called unicorn meat. Now, obviously, it's not actual unicorns being in the tin. It's just a play on that, but it is an actual product. You can buy it. A bit of a pun there too. So these are some strange things that you can buy on Amazon, and you think those are strange. Check these ones. Look at this. All right. Now, you might think to yourself, well, this looks all okay. These here, they're not gloves. They look like gloves. They're actually handapants. They are underpants for your hands. Apparently, this is very big in Korea. I don't know if anybody knows this. These are cushions that look like fish. Apparently, lots of people want cushions that look like fish in Korea. That's what I got told last year, at any rate. That may not be true anymore. I don't know. This one here is a life-size, so very, very tall, cardboard cutout of Bigfoot. Is it cardboard? No, I think it's actually an actual real thing. Actually made it, and you can buy it, right? Bigfoot. I don't know if you can see this one here. It looks like toilet paper, and it is toilet paper, but it's glow-in-the-dark toilet paper for those nighttime visits, I would assume. This one, now, you probably can't read what this says, but this is a plastic ball that is called nothing, and inside the plastic ball is nothing. And the tagline for this product says, for the people who have everything, then you buy them nothing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, I think, somebody's put some thought into that one, but people actually, the point is that there's demand for this. There's an actual product. Well, it used to be. I'm assuming it still is an actual product on Amazon. Now, this one here, I don't know if you know what this is, this here. This is a sticker that you stick on your wall of an elderly woman. I say elderly, she's probably about my age, and she's using an inhaler. Again, not entirely sure why, right? But those are actual products, jumping back to the meat, that you can find on Amazon. I don't know what you think of those. Any of those particularly surprise you? Any of those you think, yeah, hey, I'd like to buy one of those? A fish cushion, yeah. No? Yeah? Yeah, fish cushion. The hander pants? No? The duck feet? Maybe? No? So the point being is that these are products for sale, which means somebody has actually bought them before. There is an actual demand for these products. Okay? Somebody makes that decision in their head, I'm going to buy this product. I'm going to buy a sticker of a woman using an inhaler. There's enough people out there, right? Realize this, there's enough people out there who want instant underpants, just add water, that they have gone to the trouble to manufacture them, right? Because they're not going to manufacture things just for the sake of it. There actually is people who want those products, yeah? That's kind of what we're getting at now. We're thinking about you, whether you would like those products, right? Maybe, I don't know. And I guess because you've grown up looking onto the Shoppies of this world, the Lazadas of this world. When we were in China, it was called, what was Alibaba? Was it called Alibaba? What's the one in China called? I want to say Alibaba.
AliExpress.
AliExpress. And I think there's another one as well. Yeah, okay. But I remember going on to the one in China, and part of it was the translation issue. You'd type something into it thinking that you would get, I don't know, a hat, who knows, and the translation issue didn't quite come across particularly well, and you'd be referred all these other products that you just know, that's not what I was after at all. Sometimes you just give up, right? But you guys are used to Lazada and you're used to Shopee, so you're probably very familiar with how to search for things on those, and you probably find exactly what you want. Has anybody ever been surprised at something that they can buy from Shopee or Lazada? Yeah. Oh, good. That's good. One of my year 12's power is just come back on at home. That's good news. What about this one? We can buy pet food for the cats. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we can. And to me, I find that quite amazing. But it's not just you can buy pet food for the cats. You can buy like one packet of pet food for the cats. That's it. They will actually deliver you just one packet. I did this I by accident. I get the quantities wrong quite often. So I bought one avocado, because in the descriptor it didn't say how many were in the packet. So I just clicked buy, and there was just one avocado. So, and it came in a little package, all boxed up. Yeah.
Yeah, buying fruits and vegetables online is really hard
Oh, it's a minefield.
because you never know how much to buy.
And I did make the mistake because I bought some Coca-Cola. You might be surprised to know. And again, I get the quantity wrong, as I said, and I thought it was individual bottles I was buying, but it wasn't. It was boxes of Coca-Cola. So I ended up buying, I think it was 8 boxes of Coca-Cola, which is a lot, right? Because within each box there was multiple cans, right? So I ended up with, I think, because there was like 25 cans per tray, and then there were 3 or 4 trays per box, and I had about 8 boxes. So that was a bit of Coca-Cola. It lasted several months. Let's just say that. But yes, getting the quantity right can be a fun thing as well. All right, team. Let's see how far down the rabbit hole we can go. Let's have a look. So the key concept that we're discussing is this idea of demand. All right. We've got to figure out what demand is. Firstly, we need to figure out this idea of individual demand. So that's going to be the demand that we have personally, our own demand. And then we need to know this idea of market demand. Now, it should be fairly straightforward for you, I'm sure. You can work this one out, that if you've got an individual demand, then you've got market demand. What you're doing to get the market demand is actually adding up all of the individual demands, and then you get the market demand. It's just like that, okay? So firstly, we need to figure out what demand actually is. So we've got a bit of an economics definition, right? And here it is. It says, demand is an individual's willingness and ability to purchase a good or a service, right? Willingness and ability. Willingness and ability. So let's jump back to the meat, right, into the chat. What do you think it means, willingness and ability? What does willingness mean? What are we thinking? So you can type in the chat, you can turn your mic on, whichever works for you. What does it mean to be willing? No? Ready to do something? Yeah, absolutely, Imran. Well done. You've decided you want to do it. Absolutely, well done. You want it. Yeah, absolutely. That willingness, that's something you want. Another word we used to use was desire, something you desire. And then the other word is ability. So what do we think we're referring to if we're talking about someone's ability to demand something? Might be a bit more of a challenge. What do we think? Their skill, we're close. It is definitely one of their means. You're gonna think it's really obvious when you know. It's one of those sort of things. Yeah, well done, Jiwoo, well done. Absolutely. Do they have the income to afford? Can they afford it? Yeah. Because when we look at this, we're talking about whether demand is going to be effective or not, right? So there are going to be probably, as you saw, when you did your list of wants, you remember those wants, right? That you wrote out, I want a car, I want a house, yeah? There's probably lots of those things that you desire, that you want, that you're willing to have, but maybe you can't afford to have them, you know? My son and I have this sort of conversation quite often, is that, you know, he talks about things he wants, and then we have to have that conversation about whether he can afford them, you know, is the challenge. And then he will turn around to me and say, oh, but you can. And then I have to say to him, yes, but I don't want it. Yeah. So want and ability. The idea that there is a good or a service out there that you desire, that you're willing to have, but also that you can actually afford it. All right? And that's quite, and you've kind of got to have those two things. Otherwise, if you don't have those two things, there really isn't demand. So you can want something but be unable to afford it, or you can be able to afford something but you just don't want it. You know? And again, I guess it's those things that we saw, the Amazon sorts of products. There might be a couple of them that you're actually willing to have, the fish cushion, maybe, and maybe you're also able to buy it. But maybe that you want it, but you can't afford it, or maybe you can afford it, the hander pants, but you just don't want them. So here's a close exercise for you. Fill in the gaps. Put the words where you think they should go best suited into the sentences. All right, have a go. You've got about a little bit to have a go at. About 30 odd seconds. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. Well done, team. Rock stars. Just a couple more to have a go. No, it's not always easy. Sometimes Wi-Fi and other issues mean that you're not as able to connect as readily. Do try and have a go. Give you about another 10 seconds. Last call for last call. Right. So the key part there is that definition, right? So in the glossary that you are producing, right, you're going to need a definition for demand. You're going to need to talk about individual demand being the individual's willingness and ability to purchase a good and or a service. It's a good idea to know that that's an individual's demand and that a market demand is going to be when you add up the individuals, all of the individuals' demands for a market. That would be a good thing to have as well. Oh, check this out. Oh no, goodness me, this looks a little bit scary. This might be maths. It kind of isn't, really it isn't. All right. Now, what we've done here, this has got a heading here, Smith family, I know it's right. Individual demand schedule for babysitting hours, right? So then there's prices, you see here, there's hours of babysitting per month. Right. What do you think I'm referring to with this? What does this actually mean? What do you reckon? What is it a table illustrating? Let's jump back to the meat. What is it a table? What does that table represent? What do you think it shows? It shows we can make tables out of things. It shows people spend a lot of money on babysitting. What do you think it shows? How long you have to babysit for the babies. Okay.
The longer you babysit, the more higher the price will be. Your payment will be.
Good. Young team. Now, if we have a look at the table again, let's have a look and see what you can derive from it, what you can see from it, what you can understand from it. Let's have a look. So this one, we've got it kind of arranged. You'll see we've got price here, which is kind of on the left of the table. And then we've got quantities here. These are all quantities because they're hours, so they're quantities, they're the numbers, all right? And they're on the right. Now, in economics, we create these, right? More often than not, you're actually given them, but we'll say create them. And they're called demand schedules. Now, I'm not a big stickler with this. You could call it a demand schedule if you wish, right? I think that depends on whether you went to school or shul. I don't really mind, okay? But what we see here is this price per hour and then the quantity of hours, right? And you'll notice that the price per hour increases as we go down this table. And as the price, as the price increases, the quantity of hours, what happens to the quantity of hours as the price increases? What do you think?
The hours drop.
The hours drop, absolutely. Because remember, this is demand. So this is us demanding babysitting. So we have to say we make the decision, right? How much are we prepared to pay? And how many hours, would we accept for that pay rate? So if a babysitter says, I'm prepared to come and babysit for $4 per hour, then, we'd say, oh yeah, 55 hours, that's a good amount of time for that price. But then if they start increasing their price, we start decreasing the quantity of hours that we want. To the extent where they're saying, oh, it's $12 an hour, or we only want, right, we only demand this quantity. Right? So what we're seeing is that when price increases, the quantities that are demanded actually decrease, which should make sense to us. So when you're in a shop, and stop presenting. When you're in a shop and you're looking at buying something, I mean, if the price of the good was to start increasing whilst you're in the shop, chances are you'd say, oh, I don't want it now. Oh no, I don't want that many. I want only this many. You take a whole lot of products to the counter, and then they start ringing it up, and then the price just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then oh no, I can't afford that. Take this one out, and this one out, and this one out, and what price is it now? As someone who used to work in a supermarket, that used to happen a lot. People would get to the counter in the supermarket, they wouldn't have in their head mentally worked out how much everything was. They just put everything on the counter, and then the price would go up, and all of a sudden they would look at that price and go, oh my word, I cannot afford that now. I'm going to decrease the quantity of things I'm demanding. And so they would, I can't, no, don't want that anymore. That's all gone, because of the price. Now that might affect you as well, okay? But if you looked at the table, you would notice that it can work the opposite as well. So if the business was to decrease the price, the implication should be that we increase the quantities. Okay, so if we were to decrease the price, you would think, wow, actually I can afford this now. Hey, let's go buy it. It changes your decision. Now it's more affordable to you, so you potentially want it now, whereas before you didn't. So there was no demand for it before because you couldn't afford it. Now you can afford it. You've decided you want it, so you buy it. Okay. So those two key concepts there impact on the decisions that we make for the goods and services that we demand. Right? Think about lawyers, how much lawyers cost, how much IT specialists will charge you. per hour. Those are services, right? What is your demand for their service based on the cost of that? I don't know if you noticed that in Shopee and that sometimes they'll actually decrease the price, right? And you might then say, oh, I didn't want it before, but now they've dropped the price. I'm going to increase my quantities. Oh, look, oh no, check this out. This is amazing. Here's what we've done. We've taken this table, this one, and remember I said that the prices were on the left and the quantities on the right. So then what we can do is we can map it like a map. And here's the prices on the left. I know it's gasoline, it's not the same product, I know. Right? You can put the prices on the left, and then you can put the quantities here on the right. Apologies, the scale doesn't work, but don't worry too much about that. In fact, neither of the two scales work. They should be broken, you guess. Right? So this is now, when we map these, right, so each one of these, right, $4.55, $5.45, they're all individual points, if you will, on a map. Okay, they're like the coordinates on a map. You know, Cartesian coordinates. So here we X and Y. Right. Is this one X? And this one Y. Right. And then you plot where they go. Right. So all of these individual points, and then you play the famous economics game, connect the dots. Like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to call it a demand curve. Now, apologies, I know it's a straight line. Don't panic. We're going to call it a curve, but it's a straight line. Don't panic. Eventually, when you do economics long enough, you will actually find demand curves that are curved. But for the majority of what you need to do, your demand curves are going to be straight lines. It makes the analysis and the calculations that you use them with, it makes it a whole lot more straightforward if they are straight lines. Now, what we need to be able to be doing is we actually need to be able to draw these, right? Scandal. So you actually need to know how, okay? So key conventions, key rules. So when we say conventions, I mean rules. What are the rules that apply when you're drawing a demand curve? Well, firstly, you've got to have some form of title, right? Because we need to know what it is that you're modeling, mapping, illustrating. You need to get the axis right, right? So that's these ones, okay? So what's on this axis? What's on this axis? Now, these ones aren't right, but that's okay. You need to get the scale correct. So that's what I was talking about before. They've gone from 0 to 40, which doesn't make sense. So they should have actually broken the scale here. And they've gone from 0 to $2. And I think, yeah, they should have broken the scale here because it's not, doesn't then go from $2 to $4. It goes up in 50 units. And this one up in 10, right? And then the curve itself, the actual plotting of the points, and then the connecting of those points. And if you've got all of those 1, 2, 3, 4 things, then you've got the marks for this. They actually give you marks for doing this, for mapping a demand schedule. So in your exam, believe it or not, in your exam, you could get a table, a schedule like this, and then all you have to do is transform it to one like that. That's it. And you get marks for it. You can also get marks for explaining what it is. This is a demand curve. This is a illustration of the demand for, in this case, gasoline in a market. So gasoline, the American word for petrol, right? A visual illustration of the demand in the market for gasoline. Now, sometimes in the exams, this can be actually up to 6 marks, because they'll give you 4 marks for actually just drawing the graph, and 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then 2 marks for just explaining what it tells you. That's a lot. Oh, now look at this, team. Now that you've learned about this idea of demand, now we need to know the law. Now, in economics, we only have a handful of laws, okay? We're not like some of those other sciences that have all sorts of weird laws and thermodynamics and other sorts of things, okay? In economics, we just have some short, simple laws. When we say laws, yeah, there are going to be exceptions to them. When we say laws, or principles, that we're going to use the word law to describe them, all right? So we have the first one that you're going to come across is the law of demand. Now, if we assume nothing else changes, but we see a decrease in the price of a good, we assume that because the price of the good has fallen, has decreased, then that should cause the quantity demanded to increase, and vice versa. Now, and the other way around as well. So if there's an increase in the price of the good, then we would expect to see the quantity demanded to decrease. Right? Price increase. Right? That's the law of demand. That's what we say. It's the law. We assume that this happens every single time. So anytime you see a price of a good rise, you should expect to see the quantity demand increase. Yes, there's going to be exceptions, and we'll talk about those. Right? Anytime you see a decrease in the price of a good, you should again expect to see the quantity demand increase. Now, because we're economics, because we're a bit of a science, we like using laws to describe things. We also sometimes, occasionally, like using Latin. I know it's a dead language, I know, I apologize, but hey, you can say to mum and dad, I learned some Latin today. And here's your Latin. Here it is. Ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus. And what it means is this idea here about nothing else changing, right? Assuming all else is equal or assuming nothing else changes. That's what this means. That when we put this phrase in there, anytime we use the phrase ceteris paribus, that makes it then a law because we're saying nothing else is changing, right? So the only two things that are possible to change is the price and the quantity. So back there at your graph, there's the price, there's the quantity. So it's this relationship that we see. There's nothing else coming in to interfere with the relationship at all, right? We're going to see what happens when other things do come in and interfere. But for the point that I'm trying to, well, I'm probably laboring too much for you. The point I'm trying to illustrate to you is that this line, this demand curve, right, the only things that we are considering is price and quantity. That's it, because they're the only things on the axis. We haven't got all sorts of other things going on. We have kept those out of this experiment. As soon as we put other things into the experiment, this all changes, right? And we won't have a demand curve here. Okay? So the point of this being a law is that it's a law when we apply the idea of ceteris paribus. Now, you don't have to know how to pronounce it, and if you get it spelt wrong, that's okay. It's not a big deal, right? So long as the examiner can kind of see it. Now, again, there's a chance in your exam that they could ask you to define the law of demand, in which case there's 2 marks potentially right there. So having a good glossary, having a really good understanding of the terminologies, the language of economics is going to be quite important. Now, how do we explain the law of demand? Well, what we say when we explain the law of demand is that when price changes, the quantity demand changes inversely to the price. Oh, goes the other way, right? So price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. Price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. It moves inversely, right, to prices. Changes in quantity demanded versus the change in demand is one of the next aspects of this. But understanding this, this is how you explain it. This is what makes it a law, and this is the law in and of itself. So there's 1, 2, 3 key things that you need to be able to do just with this one law of demand. You need to define it. You need to explain how it is a law. And then you need to explain what the law actually means. Now, there is a trap for young players. There is a quite a common problem that students tend to have when they are faced with the law of demand. And it's this idea of quantity demanded. You'll notice I've used the phrase quantity demanded here. We use the phrase quantity here, and we've used the phrase quantities when we're talking here. Because that's what they are. They're numbers, they're quantities, they're the individual quantities, and this table illustrates how those quantities relate to the different prices. The curve illustrates how the quantities relate to the prices. So therefore, when we're writing about the law of demand, we have to refer to the quantity demanded, right? One of the traps that new to economics people have or face is that instead of saying quantity demanded, they will say cause the demand to increase. And that will be wrong, okay? So you need to talk about changes in quantity demanded. We will talk about changes to demand, but that's actually another section. That's something else. That's when we break the ceteris paribus condition. That's when we introduce outside variables to affect our law. And we don't want that, right? Because we want the law to stay as a law. But if we did introduce some sort of outside variable, some sort of outside factor, some sort of outside influence, then we're going to create a new law somewhere else, okay? A new demand curve somewhere else. And so that will then be a change in demand. If we're just looking at one demand curve, then we talk about quantity demanded. So the law of demand always talks about quantity demanded. If you do put the demand increases, I'm going to mark you wrong. The examiner is going to mark you wrong. And it's a very simple mistake to make. And it's going to cost you marks. So again, it's that accuracy. So having those really good glossaries is going to be quite important, particularly when you're trying to explain what's going on. So next activity, here it is. It's a close exercise. Fill in the gaps. Put the words in the sentence where you feel they best fit. There you go. All right, I'm going to go fill in the gaps. Okay, keep going. All right, come on, team. Work, keep going. Well done, team. Just wait on the rest of you. Good, just waiting on a few more. Well done, Rachel. Good, just waiting on a couple more. Okay, last call for last call. Okay, all right, team. Now, let's have a look at what we're going on about with this one. We've got the law of demand. The law of demand is one of the most fundamental concepts in economics. It's going to work with the law of supply. It will explain how market economies allocate resources and determine the prices of those goods and services that we observe in everyday transactions. The law of demand states that quantity purchased varies inversely with prices. In other words, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. All right, good work, team. Now I'm going to jump back to the meat. Back here. Now, team, that's a heck of a lot for you to get through today. That's really good. And it's Friday and your brains are probably going, oh, give me some rest. Okay, so here's what we've done, all right? We've had a look at what demand is, okay? Thinking about individual demand, market demand, okay? We've had a look at how to illustrate demand. So we've had a look at a demand schedule or schedule. We've had a look at the demand curve, so a visual depiction of demand. And we've started to discuss the law of demand, how it is a law, how to explain the law. And we've also thought about the common errors that people have when they are attempting to explain and or use the law of demand. That's a lot of things to get through in the time that we've had. So well done for you all for getting through all of that. I'm really impressed. Now, team, in another couple of days, we've got Monday coming around again. Next week, I think it's next week, I need to double check when I post things. But next week, there's a couple of questions that are going to appear in the classroom for you to work on. They're going to be, you know, to help you to review the key materials that we've been covering. All right. So it's not a train wreck if you're struggling with those key concepts, the terminologies, the understandings. It's to point you in the direction of you need to do a little bit more on reviewing this material or that material. That's what it is. Okay. And it's also to give you a bit of experience in the sorts of questions that we're going to be encountering as we move through the course. So eventually you're going to have, obviously, exams, and the sorts of questions in those exams require a certain level of skill and require a certain way to answer them. So the more practice we have at that, the better we'll do. All right. Now, team. I think you've done really well. So one of the things that I would like you to do between now and next week, okay, is to review the concepts that we've been covering. Okay? Now, over the weekend, I would like you to have a break. Okay? Over the weekend, it would be good for you just to have some downtime, some time away from the screens, all of that sort of an idea, time with the family, with the cats and the dogs, right? That would be a fantastic thing to do. Early next week, there will be posted into the classroom, so before our lessons, because we have lessons Thursday, Friday, so before our lessons, there will be work that will be added to the classroom. I'm not putting it in today because then you'll do it over the weekend, and I think you need just a break over the weekend, okay? All right, so team, I'm just going to stop that one.